Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we break down the most urgent issues, the most controversial conversations, the most complicated ideas. We do it all here on the channel, but we don't do it with simple drive-by analysis. We don't do superficial talking points here. It's a global classroom where we do intellectual deep dives on the biggest issues of the day. And so tonight, and really all week, we are here breaking down a lot of things related to the American political system. It's not all we're going to talk about, but it is hard to avoid the fact that it is DNC week. That's right. For those who are not in the United States, the Democratic National Convention is underway. It's in Chicago, Illinois. And it is the week where the Democratic Party, just like the Republicans did a month ago in Milwaukee, nominate formally their candidate for the president of the United States national race. Right now, we know Donald Trump and Kamala Harris will be the standard bearers for their party, but it is an official process that goes on. And there's other things, official business that has to happen in the convention. There is a party statement that is made. There's a political agenda that is articulated. There's all kinds of interesting stuff that happens at the DNC. I've been to a bunch of RNCs as a journalist, and I can tell you it's definitely something to watch. The posturing, the theatrics, but also the very real and concrete development of a platform statement for each party. So please understand that when you add the DNC and the RNC, it's not just the parties, it's not just the speeches. There's real political work happening that all of us need to be paying attention to. But this week, all eyes are on Kamala Harris. She will become the party's nominee. A month ago, that might have been impossible. Certainly 6 weeks ago, nobody was thinking about it, even though I promised y'all it would happen. But now, suddenly, Kamala Harris has ascended, and President Joe Biden has announced that he will not be pursuing re-election. And that creates a very interesting dynamic for the Democratic Party. And so far, it's been good news for them. But now comes the big moment. The moment is a historic moment when Joe Biden will be handing over the leadership torch to Kamala Harris, which really ushers in a new chapter for Democrats. We all know that it was a messy process. As much as the Democratic Party will now make it seem as if Joe Biden was a selfless politician who put country over self and opened the door and the pathway for a woman of color to pursue the presidency and for the party to have its best chance at securing the Senate and the House. The truth is, this was an ugly political tug of war that, due to people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Barack Obama, due to those political forces, those powerful political forces, Donald Trump will not be facing Kamala Harris. He'll be facing, will not be facing Joe Biden, but rather Kamala Harris, because Joe Biden effectively was told you can do this the hard way, you can do this the easy way. He chose the hard way, and this is what happens. But anyway, they're here now. From what I understand, Joe Biden is still not speaking to Nancy Pelosi, but the party is whole. The agenda is set, and the strategy is clear. All hands on deck to ensure that Donald Trump does not return to the White House and that Kamala Harris is the next president of the United States. Tonight at 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, President Biden will be giving his speech where he presumably will be handing those keys over. And we'll do our best to take that live as well on the channel. So after night school is over, we'll be taking that live right here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. We'll be breaking it all down. Another thing to know about the speech and about the convention in general is that every day has a theme. Tonight's theme, today's theme all day, in fact, has been for the people. Tomorrow is a day where we're going to see the real political muscle come out. Secretary of State and former presidential nominee Hillary Clinton will be there. Embattled Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Hillary Clinton spoke today, forgive me. And Mayor Johnson spoke today. Tomorrow's a big day where former First Lady Michelle Obama will be making what was supposed to be a surprise appearance, but all of our sources say she will be returning home to her roots to emerge tomorrow. What makes this interesting also is you notice they divide, it's like a music festival. They make sure that every night there's somebody there. So night one, you get Hillary Clinton, because who wants to miss Hillary Clinton, right? That's the logic. And you're in Chicago, so you want to hear the mayor of Chicago. Tomorrow you get Michelle Obama. You also get on Wednesday President Barack Obama, along with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. And then on Thursday, that's big night. Republicans had Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump. Democrats have Kamala Harris speaking, accepting her nomination, and we'll see who else precedes her. And all of that will be right here on the channel. While y'all are watching us here on Night School, make sure you drop in where you're calling from, right in your location, right in your city, right in your state, right in your country. Who do you want to see the most here on the convention? I see who y'all don't want. I see hard pass on Hillary. I want to miss Hillary's speeches. People say Marc, Kamala just spoke. Yes, Kamala Harris spoke, but on Thursday is the big one. I promise you. That is not the one that you want to see. The big Kamala Harris speech is coming on Thursday. I promise you. Shout out to Jazz LP. Many people are going to be there. It's really a celebrity who's who. I spent many a night at these conventions, and I got to tell you, it's an extraordinary thing to watch. A-list celebrities are there, powerful musicians and actors and actresses, leaders of industry are there, and everybody trying to get into the good parties, but also make some power moves. So it's an interesting thing to watch. All week we'll be watching that, but more importantly, I want you all to pay attention to the political moves that are happening. And the reason why they're happening is because there is a shift occurring, not just in the party, the Democratic Party, but also in the polls. Let's talk about it. Kamala Harris right now is no longer a long shot. She's no longer even the dark horse. It seems to me that Kamala Harris right now is leading in the polls against Donald Trump. The most recent polls that we have show that Vice President Kamala Harris is actually leading Donald Trump in the national polls. Now, this is a huge change from a month ago. If you remember, a month ago, Joe Biden was struggling. Joe Biden was not only down in every swing state, but it didn't look like he could win in the swing states. But according to the latest polls, Harris has a 6-point lead over Donald Trump in a national survey and a 3-point lead in another one. Now, this is important because it shows that Kamala Harris is gaining support at the right time. She's ahead in Arizona. She's ahead in Michigan. She's ahead in Wisconsin. She's ahead in Pennsylvania. These are states that are crucial for winning the presidency. Now, I've seen some other polls that show her tied at Pennsylvania, but either way, this is a huge sign of progress. It's a huge leap of Democrats from behind to in front, or at best at a statistical heat. The reason why Kamala Harris has emerged is because she connects much better than Joe Biden with younger voters. She connects much better with people of color. For example, Harris is getting incredible support from Black voters. She's getting 83% favoring her over Donald Trump right now. I suspect by election night that 83% is going to turn to about 89%, if not 91%. That's about as high as I think it'll get. This support is crucial because voters are important in the swing states. Also, Kamala Harris is seen as more trustworthy than Donald Trump in the polls. This isn't my personal opinion, although I do believe that. But on the issues of democracy, issues of handling personal issues, the personal characteristics, like, who is literally more honest, who is more trustworthy, who do you believe when they speak? All this stuff is in favor of Kamala Harris. One area, though, that is not in favor of Kamala Harris is the economy. More people, a really overwhelming number of people, favor Kamala Harris on other issues, social issues. But when it comes to that economy, boy, oh boy, they prefer Trump. Now, why is that important? Well, if you look at most recent polls taken just from a few days ago, and this is courtesy of CNN and YouGov. If you look at the most recent polls and you look at major factors in voting for president, 83% say it is the economy, 51% say it's abortion, 56% say it's the U.S.-Mexico border, 58% say that it's gun policy, 62% say it's crime, 74% say the state of democracy, 76% say inflation, which to me is still connected to economy, and 83% say economy. So now we have to know how to read this. The economy is the thing that most people consider a major factor, but it doesn't mean that the economy is the only thing people are voting for, or that it'll necessarily be the sole decider. But it is important to note just how many people here are absolutely connected to the economy. But there are other polls that, again, are very interesting in relationship to Kamala Harris. Let's look at of people who are, going to vote. People who say they are definitely going to vote. This number is super interesting, y'all. Again, a courtesy of CNN, CBS, excuse me, and YouGov. On July 18th, 81% of Democrats said that they will definitely vote. 81%. On August 4th, 85%. And now on August 19th, or August 16th, really, 87%. So there's a 6-point bump from Democrats who say they're definitely voting. And it's reasonable to assume that if you weren't definitely voting last month, and now you definitely are, it's not because you decided to vote for Trump. And similarly, on July 18th, 90% of Republicans, that's a hell of a number, 90% of Republicans said that they would definitely vote. And now it drops to 88%. And it has stayed at 88% for almost a month now. So when you look at a number like that, it shows you that the Democratic base is energized and the Republican debate is depressed just a bit. Let's look again at these national polls. Among likely voters, 51% to 48%, Kamala Harris is leading Donald Trump nationally. And in the battleground states, they are at a statistical dead heat, but Kamala Harris is up in most of them. I believe Donald Trump just holds a significant lead, maybe like in Ohio, which makes the overall number look even. But if you go state by state, which is what matters when you have an electoral college, whether you agree with it or not, it's a different conversation. But when you get to the electoral college, it kind of matters more, where you're winning, not just if you're winning, if you get my drift. Let's look at another number here, because I thought this was a super interesting one. They asked registered voters at YouGov who is likely to fight for you. And so with each candidate, they said, how likely is this person to fight for you? Kamala Harris will fight for you. Will fight for people like you. Excuse me. That's an important addendum, for people like you. 29%. I want you to really pay attention to this. 29 for men. 29% of men said she'll fight a lot. 20% said some, and 50% said not much, none. That's not a good sign for Kamala Harris. Women, of course, 37% said a lot, 20 said none, 43 said not much. Now, how people interpret people like you is interesting, but it's also important to ask, is fighting for people like you the biggest thing? Because if people see the like you as a racial or ethnic identity marker versus, say, a middle class, working class kind of class marker, it just depends on how you're thinking about it. So it'll be interesting to see how that number plays out. But I want to show you what people said for Donald Trump in that same vein. Donald Trump will fight for people like you. 43% of men said a lot. 14% said some. 43% said not much, none. Now that's interesting because that also shows you that the chasm is much bigger, right? That it's kind of an all or nothing when it comes to Donald Trump. Women 35, 11, and 54 for Donald Trump. That 54% of women don't think Donald Trump will fight for people like them is quite telling. All that to be said, Kamala Harris right now is in an enviable position. If you would have told Joe Biden that he could have the numbers that Kamala Harris has right now a month ago, he wouldn't have dropped out the race. It is just an indisputable fact that Kamala Harris has every chance to win this race. Now, some things have to change. She needs even more momentum. Her policy positions have to sort of resonate with the people. And I think Thursday's speech will do that. Remember, she's doing this before the bump. She's doing this before the convention bump. She's doing this before the Thursday speech. She could be mollywopping, to use a technical term, Donald Trump by the end of the week, or things could take a turn. It just depends on how the week goes. But the Democrats have a very well curated, as the Republicans do, convention. So I don't expect too many mistakes, just like I didn't expect too many mistakes from Republicans in their conventions. And I think you might see something special. So we'll keep following it. We'll keep watching it as we always do. But we had to talk about how those numbers are going. I want to talk about something else too, because today was an important day at the convention. I'm not going to get emotional. I want to, but I'm going to do my best. Not because there's anything wrong with being emotional, but just because I don't want to become beside myself. But I'll just say tonight we echo, or night school, what was said all day, and that is about Reverend Jesse Jackson. One of the most beautiful things that we saw at the convention earlier today, I should say, was a full, how can I put it, a full treatment, a full celebration, a standing ovation even for Reverend Jesse Jackson at the convention. Of course, the convention's in Chicago, which is where Jesse Jackson has made his political impact. It's where Jesse Jackson has built Rainbow Push. It's where Operation Breadbasket functioned. It's where Jesse Jackson has been a hero for literally 6 decades. And tonight, the convention continues to buzz over the love that Jesse Jackson received today at the Democratic National Convention. They stood to their feet at the convention to applaud Jesse Jackson because in 1984, 40 years ago, Jesse Jackson stood in front of America and made a historic run for president. He then ran again in 88. And in both cases, he gave one of the greatest speeches ever offered, not just at a Democratic convention or not just at a political convention. He gave one of the greatest speeches that has ever been given in American history. It's not just my opinion. It's been ranked as one of the greatest speeches in American history. Jesse Jackson did something special in 1984. He did something special in 1988. And you can't talk about Kamala Harris. You can't talk about Barack Obama without talking about Reverend Jesse Jackson. Now, earlier this week, yesterday, in fact, Sunday night at the Rainbow Push Coalition, which again is in Chicago, headquartered in Chicago, Jesse Jackson was honored on stage by his son, Representative Jonathan Jackson. If you don't know who Jesse Jackson is, you should read the history books. He marched with Reverend King during the Civil Rights Movement. He started Rainbow Push to fight for racial justice, economic justice. He helped to elect Harold Washington as Chicago's first Black mayor. He inspired future people. But I want to be very clear here. Jesse Jackson's run is the reason why we have a Kamala Harris. Jesse Jackson's run is the reason why we have a Barack Obama. Please understand that Jesse Jackson, when he ran in 1984, he didn't just give people hope. When Jesse Jackson ran in 1984, he expanded the electorate. Jesse Jackson didn't just go out and say, vote for me, and people did or they didn't. Jesse Jackson went out there and got people who weren't involved in the voting process and got them registered. He got people who weren't thinking about voting, and he went to South Carolina, his home state. He went to Pennsylvania and Ohio. He went all throughout the state of Illinois and Wisconsin and Michigan, and he expanded the electorate so that more people were involved. And so people didn't take Jesse Jackson serious in 84, but he kept pushing and he kept climbing and he got closer. And then in 1988, Jesse Jackson won 13 primary states. This is why it is so frustrating to hear how Jesse Jackson is erased from the history books. Jesse Jackson wasn't and also ran. Al Gore became vice president. Al Gore ran for president and damn near won the presidency. But in 1988, Jesse Jackson got more states. Joe Biden didn't win one state in 1988. I believe he was kicked out for plagiarism before he could even win Delaware. But regardless, he beat the hell out of Joe Biden. 13 states Jesse Jackson got. Now, he should have been asked by Bill Clinton to be his vice president. There are all kinds of things that could have happened, but instead he was pushed to the side. But he won 13 states. But again, he didn't just do it for himself. Jesse Jackson did it for everybody. By expanding the electorate in these states, it created the space for a broader and a newer, really, generation of Black leadership and Black political leadership. We can have conversations and debates about what it means to have a Black leadership class or Miss Leadership class. But it's important to understand that the victories that we celebrate don't happen without Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson didn't lose. Jesse Jackson did something to open up the gate for everyone to win. Jesse Jackson used to say to me a lot, he said, you can be a show horse or you can be a workhorse. He said, you can be a show horse that gets there first by yourself, or you can be a workhorse that comes pulling a wagon. Jesse Jackson came pulling a wagon of all Black political leadership. Jesse Jackson lost in 84, but he expanded the electorate so Dinkins could win in 85. He lost in 88, but Wilder won Virginia in 89. He became governor of Virginia in 89. The ability to expand the electorate, to get new people involved in the process, to give people radical energy is what mattered. Jesse Jackson didn't just go out there and talk. Jesse Jackson actually engaged in political work that mattered. Ask Hafez al-Assad in Syria what happened when Jesse Jackson got the hostages back. They said Jesse Jackson didn't have foreign policy experience, but Jesse Jackson's the one who got hostages back in multiple countries. Jesse Jackson met with the PLO. Jesse Jackson went to Lebanon. Jesse Jackson spoke to the question of freedom and justice in the Middle East. Jesse Jackson spoke even to disability studies and to Jesse Jackson spoke to the most vulnerable people in this country, fighting for economic justice, a radical reorganization of our economic system so that the most vulnerable people could get access, so that they could get free. So when you look at Barack Obama's success in 2008, whatever you think of it, it doesn't happen if he doesn't use Jesse Jackson's strategy. If you look at Kamala Harris's possibility, whatever you think of it, doesn't happen without Jesse Jackson. And I would say far more than Obama, far more than Kamala Harris, who are both neoliberal candidates. Jesse Jackson spoke to the grassroots. Jesse Jackson came from the grassroots. Jesse Jackson is a Black man from the United States whose grandparents and great-grandparents emerged out of slavery and built something that nobody else could build. I don't want to talk about Jesse Jackson like he's gone, because he's still here. He's still kicking, he's still smiling, he's still fighting. But it's for that reason that I'm glad that the Democratic Convention gave Jesse Jackson his flowers. Too often we give the flowers after people pass away. Too often we celebrate people when they can't hear our kind words and our beautiful memories. But Jesse Jackson gave us leadership. Talk about him while he's awake. Talk about him while he's alive. Talk about Shirley Chisholm. Hold her memory. Talk about all of the great leaders who have emerged in the 20th century to make it possible for the freedom and the justice and the struggle for freedom and justice that we're experiencing here in the 21st century. Let's do this, y'all. Let's talk about this, y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I appreciate that Jesse Jackson got his flowers today. The party owes him a debt that they will never repay. I've met few people with the political imagination of Jesse Jackson. I've met few people with the political vision of Jesse Jackson. I've met few people with the raw native intelligence of Jesse Jackson and the humor and all the things. I've traveled the world with Jesse Jackson. I've learned so much from him. And I'm so grateful for him. That's all I got to say about that. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more of Night School right after this. School. It's so good to see everybody here. It is convention week, and we are here covering it, but we're covering so much more because, again, our politics ain't the Democratic Party's politics. And so we'll cover the Democratic Party, we'll cover everything that they're doing, but we're also going to cover other topics. But I want to talk just a little bit about this past weekend. You know, we like to do a little media watch here all the time. And I got to say, I was incredibly fascinated with the, how can I put it? The number of people in mainstream corporate media outlets that were echoing the same talking points, Democrats and Republicans, all echoing the same talking points about the election, about Kamala Harris, about Donald Trump, about this, that, and the third. And so I don't want to spend too much time with the echo of corporate media talking points, but I was fascinated by one exchange. I was fascinated by an exchange on CNN, and I don't even watch CNN, so you know, this came to me a whole different way. This came to me on my social media, this came to me on YouTube, this came to me through a whole bunch of people texting it to me. But we saw a really interesting attack and defense of Kamala Harris on CNN. There was a panel on CNN that got real spicy when South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace kept mispronouncing Vice President Kamala Harris's name. And part of why it was frustrating to watch is because it's an intentional mispronunciation. She said the name correctly at first, and then she corrected herself to say it incorrectly. They're literally baiting people to talk about Kamala Harris in a certain way. They're baiting people to be outraged at the mispronunciation. And so it worked, because the whole conversation got sidetracked and derailed. Although I appreciated how Michael Eric Dyson, who was involved in the conversation, and Keith Boykin, who was involved in the conversation, responded and handled it. Because when the mispronunciation happened, they were trying to let it go. Keith Boykin corrected it a few times, but in general, they were trying to let it go. But then it got ridiculous, not because the woman mispronounced her name, but because of the arrogance and the racist undertones, the racist overtones with which she expressed how and why she wasn't going to stop mispronouncing this grown Black woman's name. Listen to this.
Is in a very vulnerable
position.
Talk
about rerun Kamala's.
Oh, you had it right. You almost got it.
I will say Kamala's name any way that I want to.
No, but you mispronounced her and you also misjudged her.
I just did, and I'll do it again.
Mispronouncing her name.
That's a refusal to acknowledge her humanity.
If I purposely mispronounce your name, that would not be appropriate.
Policies are Joe Biden's policies. She owns
You're
it.
normalizing
33
that kind of
times.
viciousness, man.
33 times.
But it's the,
She
you're
was the deciding
disrespecting
vote,
her.
and she was the vice on Joe Biden's bill. She was 33 times the deciding vote on Joe Biden's bills in the Senate.
And let me just say this, because this Congresswoman is a wonderful human being. But when you disrespect Kamala Harris by saying you will call her whatever you want, I know you don't intend it to be that way. That's the history and legacy of white disregard for the humanity of black people.
Oh, so now you're calling me racist.
I didn't say. I just said you weren't a
BS.
racist.
That is complete.
You don't have to intend racism.
No. You are intending that I
Your
am
disrespect
racist,
of Kamala
and
Harris
that
is part and parcel of what
and
you're
it's
doing.
wrong.
Disrespect.
It's offensive, and
Congresswoman,
it's
why can't you just?
offensive.
I'm not calling you a racist.
No,
I'm telling
you are.
you what the
You are.
practice is
You
racist.
are. You absolutely
I
are.
said the practice is disrespecting. No, what's disgusting
That
is
is
your
disgusting.
disrespect of her.
Professor.
This gentleman said,
You know
I
what?
didn't know her name.
Disgusting
He's
to
trying
women
to do
is
it.
her disrespect of women. She doesn't know what a woman is. And if 25 years ago,
White women don't have the ability to tell black women who pay the price of blood to make this country what it is to tell them they're not real women.
25
They
years
care for
ago,
your babies
25
and
years ago,
respected
I
your
became the
humanity.
first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. I
So call her
fought my
name
way
right.
through it.
So pronounce her name
blood,
right.
sweat,
Let
and
me
tears.
So
actually
pronounce her name
And
right.
Kamala Harris, if
Kamala,
I were a man,
Kamala. You said
I
it.
will
We don't
say
call you Nancy
anything that I
Nancy.
want.
It's
Come on,
Kamala.
it's
You're
Kamala.
doing this on purpose,
I
That's
Congresswoman.
disrespectful.
If,
You can't expect people to
if
respect
a
your
man put
service
on
if
a
you don't
skirt and
respect
walked
hers.
that stage 25 years ago, she
You're
would
a
have
white
said
woman
it. She would have
disrespecting a
taken
black
that
woman. That is
achievement away from
problematic.
women.
Wow. Wow. So there's so many things here, and I hate to even jump into the fray on this because this is in a way exactly what Republicans want. They want to, first of all, they're childish and they're immature, and they want to literally goad like a elementary or middle schooler. They want to goad people into spaces of frustration, anger, defensiveness around her name by calling her the wrong name. It's like pulling her hair. It's that kind of childish schoolyard immaturity, but it's to a more sophisticated end. They know that fundamentally, that if you continue to disrespect somebody by calling them the wrong name, people are going to be outraged. They want the black people, they want the women, they want the quote unquote others to be outraged. They want to show them angry and vile. They want them to fight back in a way that will turn off voters. That's one thing. They want to literally inflict, not racist, but I mean, it is racist, but they want to inflict, what's the word I'm looking for? Microaggressions on people, and on Kamala Harris and on other black people. When you call people by the wrong name constantly, it's a microaggression. When that white woman says, I will call her whatever I want, I have rarely heard such a disturbing and disgusting display of white supremacist arrogance in public without even a hint of a shield or a protection or a sleight of hand. They just went full racist. You never go full racist, right? They went full racist. This is one of the dog whistles. She said, I will call her whatever I want, as if she's not a human being, as if she's not entitled to her dignity and her culture and her damn name. Black people have fought and struggled and died over our names. We were forced to take other people's names. We were named after our owners, our principal owners. We were turned legally into property. We didn't have the capacity legally to name ourselves. And so when you say, I'm going to call you what I want, no matter what you say, it's disgusting. And the fact that she used the right name and corrected herself to the wrong name after saying the wrong name a dozen times and saying the right name first, it shows you that this is just a game. She just couldn't stay on script. Nancy Mace is racist. And my dear friend, brother, and mentor, Michael Eric Dyson, he said, this is why he's smoother and smarter than me. And I don't mean that with any like faint praise. I mean this literally. He handled it perfectly, right? He said, look, you're a wonderful person. And I know you don't intend it to be racist, but that's a perfect way to enter the conversation. Now, we all know the woman's racist, but the idea is to disarm her so that she can hear that what she's doing is racist. But because she's not actually trying to operate in good faith, even when Brother Dyson did the right thing and said, look, I know you didn't mean it this way, but this shit got racist. She was like, Wait, so now I'm a racist? He literally just said, I know you don't intend it that way. He literally just said, I know you don't intend it that way. He said, you're a wonderful person. And she still just heard I'm a racist because that's what white people hear. Any talk of race is racist. Any talk of racism is internalized and they become defensive and angry. Not every white person, but these kind of white people, these particular kinds of white people be on that type of time. And so when you see something like this, please understand the game. But there's a bigger point here. And this is a point that I need everybody to hear. When we enter the conversation and spend 2.5 minutes talking about her name, that's 2.5 minutes that we're not talking about policy. It's 2.5 minutes that we're not talking about Republican policy. 2.5 minutes that we don't offer any kind of substantive analysis of how her policies are different, better, worse, same than Donald Trump. It's 2.5 minutes where people on the left have to close ranks around Kamala Harris to protect her from misogyny, to protect her from patriarchy, to protect her from white supremacist violence, in this case, discursive rhetorical violence, but we have to protect her, right? And so while we're protecting her from that moment, not for Kamala Harris's own sake, she got Secret Service and a whole bunch of people, but it's a fight for the dignity of all women. It's a fight for the dignity of all Black women. It's a fight for the dignity of all Black people. And so while we're doing that, we on the left don't have a space, or we compromise the space. We cede the territory so we can't talk about Kamala Harris as a neoliberal candidate. We lose the discursive room to be able to say that Kamala Harris is prosecuting an imperial war or endorsing an imperial war, that when she says I stand with Israel, she's actually saying I'm going to continue to endorse this illegal genocidal war against the Palestinian people. What's the criminal justice policy? What's the economic plan? What's the vision for reparations for Black folk here in the United States who emerged and descended from slavery? We can't even ask those questions or have those conversations if we're always in a defensive position about this racist thing that's happening. So you have to choose between letting Nancy Mace and people like her disrespect you and your people, or having your agenda ignored because all you're talking about is Nancy Mace. It's a rock and a hard place. I don't have an easy answer for this. I think what I would do moving forward after watching this and learning the lesson is to say, it's to correct her once, call it racist, and then get back to the point, whatever point I'm going to make. Because if you don't do that, you're distracted. This is what Toni Morrison talked about. She said, racism in many ways is just a distraction. It distracts you from who you are. It distracts you from the work you're supposed to be doing. It is literally a system that in this particular way, and there's other discursive and other theoretical and other economic and other political and other existential things that racism does. It's not just a distraction device, but it does distract us. And so when you hear Tucker Carlson do it, when you hear Donald Trump do it, and you hear him do it right, they do it wrong, etc., they know how to do it. Somehow people learn to pronounce Arnold Schwarzenegger. They learn to pronounce Giannis Antetokounmpo. And you telling me they can't say Kamala? Kamala. 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 Whether you vote for her or you don't, whether you like her or you don't, just say the woman's name right. But more importantly, don't get sucked into this distraction. That's the piece that I need y'all to hear. Anyway, we'll be back with more Night School on the other side. We got something else to talk about. It has to do with the Green Party, Noura Erakat, and what the vision for freedom is. Let's go. Welcome back to Night School. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that join button. We appreciate y'all here. We still talking. We are in Chicago all week. When I say we, I'm talking about Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. We're not physically there, but we are giving you the coverage, just like we gave you the coverage from the RNC in Milwaukee, and we're giving you all the information you need to be successful at making your determinations about what you're going to do in this election cycle. But it's not just about the election cycle. The DNC has already been hit by mass protests. From the moment the festivities began, pro-Palestine protesters have been on the ground. They have interrupted banquets. They have shut down speeches. They have jumped on the stage. They have shouted down folk at every opportunity. And I gotta say, slow clap, excellent work. Nobody is entitled to your vote. Nobody deserves your vote without conceding something. I think we got to make some pragmatic choices in this election. I think we have to be honest about what our best options are, but we can never be silent. Anybody who tells you to just shut up and vote definitely does not deserve your vote. Anybody who tries to shame you for protesting absolutely isn't your kind of people. I appreciate and I want to shout out every single person in Chicago who has come forward to call for a ceasefire, every single person who has called for an arms embargo, every single person who has rightly, discreetly, and loudly, through letter, through phone, through speech, through song, I don't care how you did it, you need to be tearing down this Democratic Party's commitment to the Zionist ethno-state known as Israel. It is important for us to segregate or separate rather ourselves from any agenda that does harm to any group of people. And while we can understand that in certain abstract ways, when it comes to the question of Israel, somehow even the progressives get forgetful. Even the liberals somehow lose their values. We cannot do that. And these protesters are a strong and powerful reminder of what our values are supposed to be. They are a reminder that we are not allowed to be progressive except for Palestine. Progressive except for Palestine is not a personality quirk or a political tension. It is an outright contradiction that invalidates your claim that you are a progressive. You can't be a progressive or a liberal if you don't support the liberation of the Palestinian people, if you don't support calling for an end of the Zionist ethno-state. Let's be honest about that. And so these pro-Palestine protests all around the city of Chicago have been beautiful. They have been a marvelous militancy that I think need to continue at every step of the way. I'm not endorsing violence. I'm not endorsing disrespect, but there's nothing disrespectful for challenging the Democratic Party and Democratic politicians, Democratic candidates, Democratic nominees, from the lowest office attainable to the highest office attainable. All of them need to be challenged on Palestine. All of them need to be challenged on reparations. All of them need to be challenged on all of our issues. But the Palestine question right now is an urgent one, because the Democratic Party continues to go almost without critique for its continued refusal to demand an end to the genocide, a call for ceasefire, a call to stop sending weapons, a call to stop providing political protection in the UN Security Council. All of these things can be done. All of these things must be done. And Democrats ain't gonna do it on their own. You think Josh Shapiro would not be vice president if the people hadn't taken to the streets? Take to the streets, take to the internet, go wherever you gotta go. I wanna stop Trump as much as anybody, and we will defeat Trump. I do believe we have the capacity to do that. But it's not gonna come from being silent. No, it's gonna come from being loud and bold. So please keep fighting. More news, speaking of Palestine and speaking of the Democratic Convention, Noura Erakat has been in the news. If you don't know Noura Erakat, you absolutely should. She is a brilliant scholar. She is a writer of an amazing book. She is a powerful legal mind. She is an extraordinary and prolific scholar, a professor at Rutgers University. Noura Erakat is a Palestinian who spends much of her professional and political life struggling for Palestinian liberation. She hit the news cycle last week when she tweeted that she was strongly considering a run along with Jill Stein in the 2024 election. Jill Stein apparently recruited Noura to be her running mate. And last week, I raised the issue. I told that story. I reported that story but I didn't report the story. I raised some questions. I said, I know Noura very well. I admire Noura. I respect Noura. And so I was wondering what her political calculus was here, because she's one of the most principled and thoughtful people who I've ever met. And so I said, if Noura Erakat runs with the Green Party could win some votes. The Green Party could cost Kamala Harris Michigan. The Green Party could cost Pennsylvania. And maybe another state, but Michigan is an Arab stronghold. Pennsylvania has a big uncommitted movement. So Noura being involved with the Green Party ticket could be a difference maker for them in terms of them getting closer to 3 or 4%. I should say us. I am, full disclosure, a member of the Green Party, a proud member of the Green Party. But it also could cost Kamala something. It could also give Donald Trump something. And so I wondered what Noura's political calculus was. Not saying it was right or wrong. I was just genuinely wanted to know. And I was a bit surprised at the disclosure, particularly before the deal was done. But I was excited by it. Again, I respect and admire Noura Erakat a great deal, and so I wanted to see what would come of this. So time goes on. The Green Party still hasn't announced a VP. Jill Stein still hasn't announced her VP. I started to hear a buzz last Thursday and Friday. People started calling me, asking me, what do you know about Butch Ware? If you don't know, Butch Ware is the ultimate choice for the Green Party VP slot. He is a historian. He is a Muslim. He is again, a good brother. I've known him for a decent amount of time. We're not friends or anything like that, but he's a comrade. He's a brilliant brother. We went to the same graduate school, and we were there at the same time. He finished the year before I did. And so I saw Butch Ware. His name was circulating behind the scenes. He was considering running. And I said, well, if he's considering running, then Noura must be out of the mix, but I didn't understand why. And then Friday night, I believe, they announced that Butch Ware, Dr. Butch Ware, would be the Green Party's VP nominee. And so there was a mystery about what was going on with Noura. And then Noura takes to Twitter and breaks down what happened. Now, stay with me, y'all, because this is interesting. Stay with me, y'all. This is interesting. That was nasty. Noura said, after thoughtful deliberation, the Green Party and I could not agree on terms of campaign regarding strategy. This means I will not join their slate as VP. My priority remains our collective liberation, rooted in ending genocide, facilitated by U.S. cover and relentless arms transfers to Israel. So we saw this on the 16th, which was Friday night, Friday afternoon at 2:37 p.m. And I said they couldn't agree on strategy. What does that mean? Now, we all know, again, Noura as a principled person. We all know her as a committed voice for Palestine. So when people heard that she wasn't joining because they couldn't agree on strategy, people started to jump to assumptions. And I would say a lot of people jumped to an assumption that the Green Party wasn't moving the proper way on Palestine. And so people kind of wanted Noura to say more. People even like Ali Abu Naima. Ali Abu Naima is the founder of Electronic Intifada, another one of our comrades. Shout out to Ali. He said, actually, let me see. Actually, what I should say is Ali wrote this. He said, Noura, you should clarify what these differences were, because I'm seeing people already concluding wrongly and unfairly that somehow the issue is that the Green Party was too soft on the question of Palestine. Ali wrote that because people like Jason Call wrote, before people jump to conclusions, and by the way, Jason Call is a Green Party member, I need to clarify this. The proposal was that if Noura joins the team as VP, he will be under the condition that the Stein campaign withdraw from the election should the Democrats secure a permanent ceasefire and offensive arms embargo. We rejected it because, I'll get to that in a moment, but I want to be clear, I want to clarify. So basically, Noura says she's not running. She says they couldn't agree. And then, but she doesn't say what they couldn't agree on. She's not explaining why. Someone from the Green Party then jumps on and says, well, Noura basically was saying she would join if Jill Stein would withdraw from the election if the Democrats get a permanent ceasefire and an arms embargo. In other words, we're going to leverage the power of the Green Party ticket in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in other states, in a way where Kamala Harris will be so scared of losing those states that she'll agree to the ceasefire and the arms embargo. That seems reasonable as a strategy. I get what Noura was going for. Jason Call says, we rejected it because, one, you cannot trust either the Democrats or Israel to keep their word. Two, we would be sabotaging the entire election for the Green Party, both now and in 2028, giving up ballot lines that we have earned. And three, it is not possible to withdraw from most ballots anyway. The best we could do is stop campaigning and tell people not to vote for us. We could not request that any be removed from the ballots. We do not believe concessions to the empire advance the cause of justice. Of course, the highest priority is for a ceasefire in Palestine. We also see a full dismantling of the apartheid state and the occupation of Palestine by the Zionist regime, Free Palestine. Of course, he shows his Free Palestine tattoo for whatever reason, I'm not sure. But this is the breakdown. And then Ali writes, I'm glad that the Green Party offered this important clarification since people were jumping to incorrect conclusions. So at this moment, now the tide is shifting. Now people are saying, well, why didn't Noura say more? Again, I'm going to remind you that Noura Erakat is principled. Noura Erakat is honest. Noura Erakat is transparent. So my question at that point was, well, what the hell is going on? Because there's something missing here. Right? And so that's when Noura writes this. Stay with me, y'all. In respect to the Green Party's request to refrain from sharing more before the announcement this eve, I did not share more. Now I can. The party is solid on Palestine, but we disagreed on how to intervene politically in this moment. So let's be clear. Noura didn't say more, not because she wanted to mislead the public about the Green Party's position on Palestine. She didn't say more because they asked her not to say more. She told them what she was going to say. They said, cool. Everybody said they're going to be quiet and let Butch Ware get his nomination moment, and then everybody would talk about it later. But Noura kept her end of the bargain, according to Noura. This is according to Noura's words. I wasn't there. But according to Noura's words here, she refrained. She didn't say more. But then the Green Party comes out and breaks down their statement under her, which then makes Noura look as if she was being coy or cagey or just flat out dishonest. So that's not a good look. And so Noura continues. She said, I offered to join the ticket if they would be willing to concede the election if Dems deliver on permanent ceasefire and arms embargo. The idea being, as I thought, using Stein's margin in 3 swing states to compel those concessions. If we truly believe that Dems would never concede, then there's nothing to lose. It also makes clear to those eager to throw Palestinians, Arab Americans, and Arab Muslims under the bus if they lose Trump, that they are the source of their own loss. That's a powerful point, she's saying. She's saying, look, don't let the world go out and say the Green Party lost the election for Kamala Harris, or Muslims, brown people, black people, Palestinians, Arab Americans, whatever, lost the election for Kamala Harris. Say, look, Dems, you want to win the election? Do the right thing. Ceasefire. Do the right thing. Arms embargo. You can't then blame us. She said the Green Party rejected this as they are accountable to their broader base and the health of their party. Remember, Noura is not a Green Party member. She is not a member of the party, but she obviously stands with us. I understand that, but my priority in this moment is doing everything we can to end genocide by using all the leverage we have. I wish the Green Party the best in this campaign and beyond. We've always needed to break the hold of a regressive and harmful 2-party system. Now more than ever, we all play our part. There's so much power in what Noura did, and hopefully Noura will come on later in the week. We're asking her to come on, and hopefully she'll come on to have that conversation. I have a couple of thoughts. First, I understand, to Bullet the Bunny's point, I understand why the Green Party wanted not to stop, not to agree to a concession. 5% of the vote matters. You get federal funding. They have other elections that they're in. The logistical stuff about, you can't take a name off a ballot, all that's fine. If you stop campaigning or you tell your base, hey, we're voting for Kamala, just like the Working Families Party did, you'll be fine. You'll win. You'll achieve your goals. So I don't believe that they could have done nothing. They could have come to an agreement if that was the only hangup. But the Green Party does not want to concede this election. There's an argument for that. Based on the Green Party's position and their vision and their goals, it makes sense that they didn't want to do that. I don't agree with that. I agree with Noura. I think the best thing to do, if everybody agrees that a ceasefire is the biggest thing, if everybody agrees that stopping the death and the violence, stopping the weapons sales and transfers to Israel, if that's the biggest thing, then let's do whatever we can to facilitate that. Let's facilitate it stopping. Let's shut it down. That's how you do it. But they didn't agree. Now, I can accept that the Green Party didn't agree with Noura Erakat. I can accept that. Again, I don't agree. I agree with Noura, but what I can't accept, what I think is deeply problematic, is the way it was handled. If there was an agreement to say nothing, then nothing should have been said. If they told Noura to hold her powder or to just be, to just wait, then you can't undercut her. You can't undercut her. You can't undercut her by coming out and then making it look like she snaked the party. You have to be in coordination there because she's the one who takes the fall. And then beyond just the announcement, there's a way that it's going to be framed wrongly that Noura Erakat is somehow selling out to the Democratic Party, or that she's some idiots are going to say she's an operative for the DNC or for Kamala Harris. No, she's doing real politics in real time. Noura Erakat is saying something very simply. So very simple. The goal is victory. And if victory is, at this moment, short-term victory is stopping the genocide, stopping the weapons, then we have to achieve that goal. She said, I'm just trying to stop my people from dying. That's a pragmatic goal. It doesn't mean she sold out. She's a courageous truth teller. It doesn't mean that she doesn't see the poverty of the two-party system. She acknowledged it. But you have to make strategic decisions. And sometimes the strategic decision is to vote green. I've done that a million times. Sometimes the strategic decision is to not vote at all. Sometimes the strategic decision is to let the chaos build and then you come out the other side. I mean, there's lots of strategic moves. But in this election cycle, she made a principled choice that makes sense for her and that makes sense to me. And if you don't like it, cool, but don't misrepresent it. Don't create a context where now somehow one of our most courageous freedom fighters is made to look like a sellout, because she's the furthest thing from that. And that's all I got to say about that. Hopefully Noura will come on and speak for herself. I don't speak for Noura, I only speak for me. But I wanted to break that down. I want y'all to get the full story so you understand what's going on. We're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we are going to say goodbye to a legend. Welcome back to night school. Today's been a sad day for me for lots of reasons, but maybe none sadder than the passing of Phil Donahue. If you don't know, Phil Donahue is a legend. Phil Donahue is a god for TV folk. Phil Donahue is a hero to so many of us. And he passed away at the age of 88 after a long, long bout with illness. if you are a kid of my generation, whenever you stayed home from school, you was gonna see some Donahue. Whenever I went to my auntie's house or whoever's house, or, you know, you was gonna see some Donahue. Donahue became a metaphor and a symbol of everything about daytime TV, about daytime talk show hosting, about all of the things. Donahue was our entry point into so many amazing conversations, so many amazing ideas, so many of the most touchy and controversial topics ever told. They came from watching Donahue. 6,000 episodes of the Phil Donahue Show were shot from 1967 until 1996. He was no joke. He passed away, but leaves his loving wife, Marlo Thomas, another legend, as well as his 4 children from a previous marriage. Of course, he lost his previous, or his youngest son, excuse me, for his own death. He died 10 years ago in 2014. I don't know anyone who's in the journalism business or the TV business who doesn't owe a debt to Phil Donahue. Oprah Winfrey praised him as a trailblazer who made daytime talk shows important. Deborah Roberts of 2020, Montel Williams, you name it, they all honored Donahue, calling him a groundbreaking figure. Andy Cohen and Piers Morgan shared their admiration for Donahue, noting his impact on TV and also his support for the LGBTQ plus community. He set the stage for every single one of us. Donald Trump would get a very different interview if Phil Jackson was around. Phil Donahue was around, excuse me. So would Kamala Harris. Our cultural debates, our social tensions, they would be unpacked so differently if Phil Donahue were still here. Phil Donahue sat down with Farrakhan multiple times and pressed him, challenged him. Now, Farrakhan held his own, and I would say won whatever debate it was. But who else was willing to even present Farrakhan to the world? Who was willing to present Khalid Muhammad to the world? Who was willing to present Scheherazade Ali to the world? Who was willing to have conversations with white supremacists? Who was willing to talk about anti-Semitism? Who was willing to talk about same-gender loving people? Who was willing to talk about trans identity? Who was willing to talk about homelessness? Who was willing to talk about war? Who was willing to stop the war drums after 9/11? It was Phil Donahue. Phil Donahue was on MSNBC. He was on these corporate media outlets saying, wait a minute, I saw what happened in 9/11, but the drums of war are beating unnecessarily. They're lying to you. The government is lying to you. Bush is lying to you. The Democrats are selling out and caving. They're lying to you. The Republicans are war hawks too. They're lying to you. Phil Donahue lost his job. He lost a significant part of his career because he was willing to tell the truth when no one else was. He was a giant. He was an intellectual. He was one of the greats, man. I'm so grateful to have had an opportunity to know Phil Donahue. I'm so grateful to have had an opportunity to interview Phil Donahue. One of my favorite moments of all time as an interviewer was when I was at HuffPost Live and Phil Donahue came and we talked about his pioneering career. We talked about his 20 Emmy Awards. But we also talked about the media's failure with the Iraq War, the media's failure to talk about George W. Bush. We pushed him, we challenged him, but only in small quarters, he argued. Phil Donahue was a genius. Phil Donahue was a giant. Phil Donahue was a world changer. We talked and we laughed, and afterward, he said to me, you know what? You're pretty cool. I was good for the rest of the year. Couldn't nobody tell me nothing, man. He said he liked my interview style, all that stuff. He gave me some compliments, gave me some encouragement. But more importantly, he gave me a model. He gave me an example. He gave me a path of how to do tough interviews, of how to be engaging but intellectual, to never let the viewer off the hook, or myself or my guest. Phil Donahue is a legend. He's a giant, and I'm so grateful to have known him. send my condolences to his family, to his friends, and his legions of fans. Rest in peace, my friend. All right, family, that is it for Night School. Thank you so much for watching. Every single night we're here doing this, man. We hope to see you again. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. When you hit the like button, family, it lets the YouTube algorithms know that what we're doing matters to you and that we should take up a little bit more that algorithm. Let them know the corporate media ain't the only game in town. We also ask that you hit the subscribe button so that we get a bigger media footprint so that we can get the content out to more people. We also ask, if you're so inclined, that you hit that join button. When you hit the join button, we get the monthly stability, the financial predictability that we need to build this thing out. Again, what we do here every single night, Night School, Monday to Friday, 9 p.m., office hours, Sunday at 9 p.m., coffee and books, Saturdays, 9 a.m., the classroom in the cell, Sundays at 9 a.m. We do this work without a billionaire backer, without a corporate check being cut, without a mainstream media outlet undergirding us. We do this strictly with the power of the people. So please, if you can, hit that join button. If you don't see the join button, because you're probably not on a browser, you're not on a desktop, you can use, you can go to the description, and inside the description is a link to the join button. If you can't make a monthly commitment, family, I ask that you make a commitment tonight, a one-time or for this month commitment that gives you kind of like tuition for Night School, we like to call it. Go to Cash App, go to PayPal, go to Venmo, go to Zelle. And if you can, please make a donation. No amount is too small. No amount is too big. If you give $1, we are grateful. $1 is just fine. If you give $1 million, we are grateful. $1 million, I promise, is just fine. But we ask that everybody, if possible, could give $10 tonight. If everybody watching tonight could give $10 minimum, everybody watching tonight could give $10 minimum, we would have the ability to meet our financial goals for the month. We can continue to put out content. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, it's August 19th and we are behind in our financial goals. A lot of reasons for it. I know it's the summer, I know people are away, but we pay payroll, we have staff, we put out content, we're building a studio, we're doing these things with your support. And if you want Night School to continue, if you want this platform to grow, then please consider making a $10 donation to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle for the month, or going and joining the chapter as a monthly, the channel as a monthly member. Anyway, family, I appreciate y'all and I love y'all. No matter what, keep watching, keep liking, keep sharing, but most of all, keep studying. Because after all, that is what Night School is all about. See y'all later. Peace.